Okay, guys, we'll make a start. Firstly, thank you very much for turning up. I've got to use this thing, so I might try and move it around too much. I'll try not to move my hands around too much. But yeah, firstly, thank you very much for turning up. I hadn't got a clue how many people were going to show up, and I think this is a pretty cool start, so thank you very much. If there's a fire, we'll run out. If anyone needs to go to the toilet, just help yourselves, and mobiles to try and make sure they're turned off. Drinks, help yourselves. And like, I'll try and get through the presentation, and then we'll try and I'd quite like to kind of open it up to the floor to have a bit of a discussion about kind of where we're at, where we think we can go in the future and stuff like that. If people can't hear me at the back, just shout. Hopefully this is working all right. Yeah, cool. So what we're going to cover, a bit of an introduction. How did it all begin? So why am I standing here talking to you guys? Where we've got so far. Where we think we could go, a little bit on what we can do around the DZs, and then, like I said, just kind of a bit of discussion about what your guys' thoughts are, because it's at the end of the day, it's about you guys and sort of us as a community. So a bit about me. I think some fairly sort of familiar faces in here. I started jumping in 2014. Did most of my stuff up at Sibson. I've been lucky enough to jump around Europe, bits and bobs in the States. Started off flying camera. Did my AFF, went to the Tour Coaches Workshop, which is a really, really good thing to go and do. I'm now kind of pushing into doing a bit more coaching, some events and some load organising. I'm also aiming to do my advanced course this year in May. So that's kind of a bit about me. I've had a pretty varied experience before I started jumping. I did a number of different jobs, and I try and bring what I learned in those, into what I'm doing in skydiving. I am not, however, an environmental, I haven't got any kind of qualifications or formal qualifications in this, so everything that I've kind of learned is just from my own reading. So yeah, I'm not a qualified environmental person or sort of sustainability sort of expert or anything like that. I do really like jumping though, and I want to be able to carry on jumping. I want other people to be able to carry on jumping as well. So how did it all begin? There were kind of three things. There was lots of three things that will kind of become apparent in this talk. The first one was I was doing a canopy course, Flight 1 canopy course with Maxine Tate in the Algarve, and she said to me, like, what do you want to get out of this week? And I said, I want to be able to be an old skydiver, and she looked at me like I just swallowed my own hand. She was like, that's the most random thing I've ever heard about kind of what you want to get from a week. But for me, what that meant is not injuring myself and learning how to fly that canopy, and not injure myself on that canopy. Concurrently to that, I went and did a couple of the tour camps and the Fly for Life camps, and there was kind of bits and bobs of talk about kind of climate offsetting and stuff like that. And then around that same sort of period, my other half, who's in Seville, and I'll probably get in trouble for leaving her there, but she was meant to be here as well. She was doing a master's in sustainability and environmental management. So those kind of three things were all kind of bubbling away in the background. And I think if I look back, those they kind of led to where we are, kind of what my thinking is, where I'm trying to think, or the way I'm trying to think, sorry. Organised my first event in 2019, end of 2019, in Hungary, and I kind of did that, and I was like, look, I want to try and do some more events, try and push the event side of things. So that kind of led to me sort of creating the VISIONAIRi thing. When I was creating that, I was like, okay, what do I want that to be? And there were three things. It had to be safe, or as safe as possible, because I know that kind of skydiving isn't safe. It's kind of like we have to mitigate. We'll come on to that in a second. It had to be fun, otherwise I'd stop doing it. And it had to be sustainable. So those are the kind of three pillars of what we're trying to achieve, or what I was trying to achieve from VISIONAIRi. So the safe bit, we talk a lot about safety, especially on like all the instructors courses and stuff like that. We'll go like, right, safety's first, like it's got to be safe, it's got to be safe. But what is safety? Like, anyone, like, if you say, like, we're really concentrating on safety, what does that mean to you guys? Anyone, just stick your hand up. Yeah, exactly, yeah. So to me, it was like, we talk about safety, but a lot of the time people don't think about, okay, like, you do safety, but what is that? And to me, like, risk management and risk mitigation. So whatever you're doing, whether it's like making sure we're jumping in the right conditions, making sure we're wearing the right equipment, there is still a risk, but we're trying to manage that risk. Keep training, keep learning. like unless you keep on learning, then you're not managing that safety. Continued progression and development, and then discipline as well we're like most of us are kind of aware of what safety is, but we need the discipline to stay on those tracks. The fun bit, so like everyone will kind of be excited about skydiving in different ways. What makes it fun for one person will be slightly different. Like for me, like the people and the community, the different disciplines and the challenges that they bring. I think that's one of the best bits about the sport, which I really enjoy, is seeing all the different disciplines. Like if we look around in here, there's people that we're all kind of sat in the same room, all doing slightly similar things, but kind of at the same time, it's all slightly different. And to me, that's one of the best bits about the sport. The travel hasn't been great for the last 2 years, but again, super good part of the sport. And also, like I think part of the fun bit to me is the risk. So again, if we kind of think back, okay, like what those are the first two bits of what we were trying to achieve with VISIONAIRi. And then the last, I guess, pillar is like the sustainability bit. Sustainability is kind of in my mind was broken down into a few different bits. Physically, if like physically you're not looking after yourself, we're not going to be able to come back to being that old skydiver. So like, how do we look after ourselves physically to be able to become an old skydiver? Well, that was my back earlier on in the year. I wasn't looking after myself, screwed my back up. So that put me out. So it's then working out what we need to do to be able to do that, or to be able to stay physically strong. Mentally, like I think it's one of the things. That is like, especially if you're working in the sport full time, it can kind of get pretty flat, if you like. And how do we kind of maintain that kind of excitement and drive to keep pushing within the sport? Financially, then we'll kind of come on to this a little bit more at the end. But like, how do we maintain like the financial balance to be able to keep people in the sport, keep people progressing in the sport? I think it's something that like we need to look at, or we can look at. And then the last bit is the environmental bit. So like those are the kind of the four bits of sustainability, which in my head I was kind of spinning around that we need to work out. And then we'll come on to each of those. We'll come on to the last one a bit more in a minute. When I was writing this, actually Reka, she put me onto this as well, so thank you, Reka, who's in Seville, and I'm in trouble. So there's, if you look at what is sustainability, whether it's business sustainability or environmental sustainability, there are kind of four pillars to it. And those are the people and the humans that are involved in it, the culture and the social side of it, the economic resources which are involved in it, and then the environmental. So like kind of, it doesn't matter if it's a sustainable business model or sustainability on kind of what we're trying to achieve in skydiving. Those are the kind of the four pillars that we're looking at. So the environmental piece, we'll kind of concentrate a bit more on that. And that kind of, how to tackle it was a bit of a question. We burn fuels, which leads to heat, and then also carbon dioxide, water, carbon monoxide, and nitrogen oxides. So we'll focus a little bit more on the carbon side of things. Does anyone know how much carbon's produced in a normal, on an average skydive? Any ideas? So it's between 10 and 28 kilos of carbon produced per jump. And to me, like on a lot of the on the events and kind of things that I was reading, it's like, well, we're offsetting this, we're offsetting that. To me, that was kind of quite not confusing, but kind of it wasn't clear enough. And to me, like if we say like, oh, it's 10 kilos of carbon, like what does that actually mean? What does it actually look like? So it looks like about 6 bags of charcoal briquettes. So that's kind of like what per jump, that's roughly what we're producing. So Skydiver Arizona, one of the biggest drop zones in the world at the moment, that will produce enough carbon to fill 4 structures the size of the Coliseum and Rome, plus 1 Pantheon. So that's quite a lot of carbon. That's in a year. So I was kind of, we've got this problem, how do we try it? Then we're looking at trying ways to sort it out. When I was kind of in that thinking, I was like, how does that compare to other things that we're doing? So like, we all live our lives and we do other things. How does that all compare? So I'm sure some of you might have seen this. This is off my skydiving footprint. And you can see here, look, kind of the skydiving per jump is the orange line. Driving 30,000 kilometres per year, or 30,000 kilometres is the yellow line, and then flying to America from Amsterdam is the purple line. So you can see that until you get up to around 250, sort of below 170 skydives, you're both below those. But that's the kind of, there are other things which are equally as bad for or not as good for the environment. There's some other interesting kind of comparisons which I thought I'd put up here. The daily fuel wasted in American traffic jams is the equivalent to almost 6 million jumps. So like that's a lot of waste. Deepwater Horizon spill was the equivalent of every skydive ever made and 30 million gallons left over. So again, like there's loads of kind of other things which are super bad for the environment, right? Driving a car, like we just said, 267 skydives, or one transatlantic flight, or 175 jumps, sorry, that was. This was quite an interesting one. So the amount of fossil fuels or like energy that's needed to make 21 plastic bottles is the equivalent that is used for one jump. Like this is all kind of random stuff which will kind of hopefully tie together a little bit in the end. Also, US Defense Department, they're using 14 million gallons per day. So that's all the skydives that were made in a year and a half. So all these kind of things were all kind of bubbling away, kind of reading around them. I was like, okay, cool, should we still do something? Our answer was yes. So if we're going to do something, the question then was like, what do we do? Like stopping jumping, well, that doesn't really lead into kind of like, how do we become old skydivers? If we stop jumping, then we're not an old skydiver, right? We then looked at kind of like, how can we sort of in this room, I don't think, is there any aeronautical engineers in here? No? Or any physicists? So I thought you were going to put your hand up then, Becky. No. So yeah, so like, can we in this room, can we control the aircraft? There's DZOs, there's buzzers in here, like he's a DZO, like he can potentially start looking at aircrafts and stuff like that. But can we control that? So then we were like, okay, cool, we've still got this problem, we still need to offset the carbon. Like, how do we do it? And like offsetting was kind of the way that we kind of decided to go. It's not a new idea. Like this is it. Like the offsetting thing has been around for a long time. There are a number of people that do it. Tilsop, Buzz, how long have you been doing it for? 6 years. Yeah. So like Buzz is kind of leading the way in the UK, and it's not a new thing. There are other kind of DZs around the world which are doing it. Sartori Factory in my skydiving footprint, like a lot of kind of my thinking and kind of where we've got to is because of guys like Buzz and Sartori Factory in my skydiving footprint. Imperial, they've gone carbon neutral. A few others, AWOL Tasman and Skydiving Apostle. So there are people doing it, there are DZs doing it globally already. So we had to do, like we felt like we needed to do something. So how do we try and offset, how do we try and solve this problem? It had to be simple, like the going to the event and like saying we're offsetting, we've offsetted our jumps. We didn't really, to me that wasn't clear enough about kind of what does that actually mean. So I then looked at kind of like one jump, one tree. To me, that's pretty much as simple as it gets. So then the question was like, does that actually work? Will that actually will one tree absorb the amount of carbon that's produced? And yes, like the maths does pretty much work. A mature tree absorbs 25 grams or up to 25 kilos of carbon in a year. Like the mature bit, we'll cover that in a second, because that is super important. Like a mature tree is very different to a sapling. So then the question was like, how do we actually get these trees planted? We looked at some schemes in the UK. It was over or up to sort of £10 to plant a tree. Like realistically, how does that then link back into the economical piece? Like that's not going to happen. Like we're not going to start paying an extra £10 like per jump to offset a tree. So that wasn't going to work. And also we didn't want a kind of a plant and forget scheme. There's quite a lot of schemes that have gone on in China and a few other countries where they've planted a load of trees and then there's nothing to kind of sustain that and kind of keep those trees alive and keep them growing. Has anyone heard about the kind of the saying, like, when's the best time to plant a tree? Anyone? So the best time is 100 years ago. Yeah. When's the second best time? Today, yeah. So it's like, we definitely feel like that it's something that we should be doing, and we should be doing it now. Yeah, like there's stuff that we should have done in the past, or we could have done in the past, but we felt like we needed to start doing something now. Yeah, so the best time is today. So we've got this problem. We've decided we're going to go with one jump, one tree. It works. It's simple. Like the maths works of carbon produced to carbon absorbed. So how are we going to get that done? We partner with Trees for the Future. Why did we choose them? We chose those guys. They're sort of they were super well established. They've been around since the 70s. They're highly scrutinised. And for us, if people are gonna, or if we're gonna commit to giving giving money to someone who's going to try and provide a product for it, we wanted it to be as well scrutinised as we could find. They use something called the forest garden approach, which is a 4-year cycle. They work on a kind of a 4-year cycle. They'll identify an area, they'll choose the farmers, they'll plant the trees, they'll then diversify that area, they'll then try and optimise kind of what's going on in that area, and then at the end of it, that's the kind of the 4-year cycle complete, and then they'll kind of repeat that cycle. So it's not just about planting the trees, it's about kind of trying to grow a community around that area. And with that comes like many benefits, trying to educate the people so that they don't use as many kind of, I'm trying to think of the right word, trying to use better, more sustainable ways of living effectively, so burning less coals and all those sorts of things. Trying to do it in the most sustainable way. Another reason they've got projects around the globe. So here you can see where they've had previous schemes in the lighter green, and then the dark green is where they've currently got planting schemes around the world. And also the cost, it had to work financially for people, and 25 cents per tree. Like I strongly believe that everyone, like if we want to, we can afford 25 cents per tree. Like we probably spill more beer. There'll probably be more beer spilt here at the end of tonight than that per jump, right? So it's like it does, like the maths works on that side of it as well. So that's where we got to. We kind of got so we've got the problem. Hopefully we've got something that will sort it out. We've got someone who will do it for us, and then we started it. So in year one, last 2020, we managed to plant 517 trees, and we were pretty chuffed with that. We were like having to pinch ourselves a little bit. We had loads of support, not just from people who were, so that was kind of, there wasn't a lot of jumping going on at that time. We had loads of support. Brian Cumming made a huge impact on that. He donated a lot from all the talks and stuff like that he was doing. And there was he was promoting it a lot. Pete Allen was kind of talking about it a little bit. So I was like, actually, this can work. Brian also put Hayabusa on the spot and asked them to donate for their jumps that they were going to do that year. So yeah, that was kind of a pretty cool start. So we thought like, okay, this is actually going to be a thing. Year two, so last year, we got to November and we were like, I think it was around October, and we were at 88,000 trees. And I thought, okay, cool, I reckon we can make 100,000 trees this year, which for year two we would be like, that was pretty cool. We were quite excited about it. And then kind of things went a bit mad. Milko and Sean decided to come on board. They donated their 20,000 plus jumps, so we well pushed past. We were gonna push past 100,000, and then kind of I met Jana and Jenna out in Seville, and I was like, don't suppose you guys want to get on board as well. So thank you very much, guys, and you tipped it well past 100,000. So we ended up last year on 148,410 trees. So also I forgot to mention Paul Capti as well, because you've done the Jump Lodge. So out in Portugal, like they're offsetting, like they're donating for a lot of their accommodation and the jumps. I've probably forgotten loads of people who have donated as well. So yeah, I'm still having to pinch myself a little bit that we've got to where we are. and like that. Without the support of you guys and people in the community, there's no way that I'd keep doing what I'm doing. So a huge thank you for that. Any questions? I don't think we've got 2 so far. All good? Yeah.
When you're talking about how much carbon was produced per jump, was that per load or per jumper?
Per person.
Per person.
Yeah. Obviously, it's all kind of, it's really hard to get kind of exact numbers because every pilot, if you have the same plane, every pilot's going to fly slightly differently. Every load's going to be have slightly different weights. And then if the same aircraft at a different DZ, there's going to be different altitudes, different flight times. So it's hard to get kind of like exact numbers. Buzz?
Yeah, so we offset the amount of fuel that we burn every year.
Yeah.
So we've got a definite amount of carbon that's been produced. And I just did a quick figure then, whilst when you said that 10 kilos. The jumps we did last year and the amount of carbon and the amount of fuel we burned, it works out about 14 kilos per jump.
Yeah, and it's like there are aircraft which are better than that and worse than that. Like, sorry, yeah, go on.
So, I was going to ask, what's your carbon number? So are you going that just off carbon dioxide, or are you doing it through all the others, including where's your carbon number coming?
Good question. I'll have to come back to you. Like I said at the beginning, I'm not an expert. So yeah, most of this data is basically pulled from other people who have done all the research. I haven't gone and kind of like worked out the exact kind of carbon that's being produced and all that sort of stuff. Like, it's something that we need to do. We know that, but like it's basically me doing it, and I haven't got around to it yet. It is something that we are looking to do. Any other questions? Cool. So what can we grow into? Next year, or sorry, this year, I keep on thinking it's last year still, we're going to try and hit 250,000 trees. I definitely think it's achievable. Like, it's just over 100,000 trees, if my maths isn't right or isn't wrong. So yeah, I think we can do it. Try and encourage more people to get involved. I'm quite encouraged that like all these number of people are sitting here. So yeah, hopefully we can just keep growing it and get more people involved. And that starts with individuals, like with each of us individually to do it. And then teams. Last year we had like a load of teams: NFTO, Chimera, Pumas, and so like there are teams that are kind of offsetting all their jumps. We're going to try and encourage more teams to do that. Events, like our events, like all the VISIONAIRi events, we do 3 trees per jump. Just because we believe in kind of we should be kind of effectively leading the way and kind of pushing it. And then DZs, DZOs, and lastly associations. Like, as soon as we start getting those guys on board, then it's I think it will kind of snowball. So yeah, that's kind of what we're going to try and push for this year. One of the things as well is like we need to make it easier for people to donate. Like, to start with, it was basically me sending Facebook messages to people and going like, "Oh, do you fancy donating?" It's like I can't sustain that. It's not a scalable thing. So we've got like a website. We're trying to make it easier for people. Eventually, we want to try and get it linked into an app where people can literally go. Like, phones know exactly what we're doing nowadays. Allow people to know you're at a drop zone. Guess what? At the end of the day, it goes or linked into Burwell. You know how many jumps you've done. Get a message that pops up. It's like, you've done 6 jumps. Do you want to donate? Like, less than $3. Stick your thumb on it, and guess what? The donation is done. That's kind of where we want to try and push to. So if there's any app developers out there, give us a shout. Also, like, more appealing, there's like the tax bits for DZs as well. How can we make it easy for them to use? Is there a tax benefit for them to do that? We're looking into that more as well. We did look into whether it was worth us becoming a charity. At the moment, like, our advice is that it's not worth becoming a charity. Maybe in a couple of years we will. But yeah, that's something that we're still kind of looking into. And like we said at the beginning, continue to grow as a community. Like, I can't do this on my own. Like, so we need your help to kind of to try and do it. Also, I think it's really important to realise that this isn't the solution. It's a solution for the moment, but we need to look for other ways to kind of move forward into the future. Magnix, which is a country, they've done test flights on the electric caravan. Super, like, really successful test flight so far. It's they've also got a flight. A load of planes, I can't remember what they're called, The ones on the right of the screen there, they're flying around Canadian harbours, and it is working with electric planes. Zero Aviates company based in the UK. They've got like a kind of a pretty aggressive timeline. Within sort of the next 2 years, like we should have aircraft with 10 to 20 seats with a 300 nautical mile range. Like that will work for us as skydivers. That's the plane that usually flies in, the passenger plane that usually flies in and out of the Algarve. They've got tests going on that at the moment. And then this is straight off their website, which kind of compares different methods of kind of moving forward with aviation sort of propulsion, I guess, over the next couple of years. And they're saying that like the hydrogen and the electric combined, so a hybrid between those two is likely going to be the most effective. And there are a number of reasons for it. The batteries are really good, but the scalability and how they can scale that is not looking as good as we think. Also, like to me, like if we've got an AA battery, we're not allowed to put an AA battery in the bin, right? Like in a normal bin. So if you've got a plane that has loads of batteries in it, at the end of their life cycle, where are those batteries going? So it's brilliant that like it works, but then at the end of the life cycle, where do those batteries go? And it's the batteries work, but kind of what happens to it afterwards, I think, is important questions to ask as well. So yeah, I think it's going to be really exciting to see where they go. I think from my reading so far and kind of talking to other people, I think it's going to be a mixture of hydrogen and electric, and it's going to be happening pretty soon. I think like in the next kind of 5 years. I don't know whether we'll see them at the drop zones, but I think we'll see them kind of in commercial aviation. This is quite an interesting bit, especially the second and third point for DZOs, like a lot lower operating costs or maintenance costs. And again, whether that will be able to link back into the economic piece of keeping people in skydiving, it'll be interesting to see. UK aviation targets. So by 2030, we need to have reduced it by 15%, 2040, 40%, and then net zero by 2050. So it sounds like a long, long way away, but to make change like this, I think it's going to take a long time. And I think like we have started, and I think we need to keep pushing on it. So yeah, I think those are some important numbers to keep in our minds. Also, I think it's really important to keep small wins around, like try and think about kind of the small wins like that we can make a difference for, not just in skydiving, but kind of, I guess, in life in general. This was taken at Skydive Elsinore, and they kind of just got like a water machine. You fill your bottle up rather than using plastic bottles. So if anyone's maths is super good and they can do the maths quickly, that equates to, if it's 21 bottles for one jump, that equates to 7,500 jumps. So it's like little things like that can potentially make a real difference. Recycling around the DZ, I was speaking to a couple of DZs earlier in the year, and it's amazing how much people are still struggling to get recycling from their local authorities and stuff like that. Buzz is nodding his head, so he's probably struggling with sort of similar problems. So yeah, it's something that we can do, try and reduce the waste, general waste, looking at solar options for on top of the hangars. And then just general efficiency of like if we as skydivers, if we can get on the plane quicker, sit in the plane better so that the plane climbs quicker, guess what, those little things, those small incremental gains, it will hopefully make a difference. And then offsetting. Keep doing that. Any questions? Cool. So what are we going to do? We'll keep ensuring that we're donating 100% of people's donations to trees.org. Like, so we feel that really strongly that if people are giving us their hard-earned cash, we need to make sure that all of that is going to trees.org. And that was one thing that, like a lot of people said, oh, you can just do it on PayPal, click, but then PayPal are taking a load of money. Or if we're doing it kind of through other ways of kind of collecting the money off skydivers, we want all of that money going. We don't want it going to other things. Hopefully we can maintain that. We might have to kind of go like through the PayPal route or something like that, but that's something that we're going to kind of keep pushing for. Keep donating like 15 trees for every item of merchandise or swag that's sold. So if you buy a piece of clothing off the website, we'll donate 15 trees. So go and check out the website. There's a lot of stuff out of stock. There's a new order coming in. Like we said, 3 trees on every event that we do. And then like how, if we link back to kind of, like I want to be able to carry on jumping. I want to have like more generations carry on jumping. And trying to keep working to encourage that and to make that possible. And this is something I kind of thought up last night. It's like, what can we, like in this room, we haven't got any aviation engineers or physicists. So like, what can we achieve first? Like clean aviation. So can we kind of create hydrogen planes? Probably not. Or can we offset every jump globally? It's a choice that we can make. It is literally a choice. Like if we want to do it, we can pretty much do it, I think. Yeah, keep jumping. And that's where we're at.